The 2024 election is less than 1 week away, and it's time to give the Biden-Harris regime a report card for the last 4 years. That and more on the other side of this brand new intro video. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chrisinformation. I'm Chris Chella, former press assistant and man on the street for the Florida man himself, Matt Gaetz, former social media coordinator at the Daily Caller, and freelance writer now over at Headline USA. Guys, go check them out. They're a solid America First publication that's growing rapidly. Sorry for my extended absence, but we will be with you nearly every day until Election Day and beyond. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, we are giving away a second Amazon gift card at the 7,500 subscriber mark, so be sure to like that video, leave a comment. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that button. You're all set. And if you could, follow me across other social media platforms, that's appreciated as well. So I've come to this conclusion that the Democrats are like a child with oppositional defiance disorder. They want to oppose the other side so much that many have become pro-Hamas sympathizers, praising a country that sponsors terror and hates us, while demonizing our ally, Israel. They want to oppose the other side so much that they don't care if our country is overrun by illegals. They want to oppose the other side so much they ignore basic biology and say men can have periods and get pregnant. The more we push for sanity, they push further off the cliff of what most human beings consider normal. Asking why is like asking why a spoiled toddler throws a fit when they don't get what they want. Because their brains haven't or never developed. They can't quite process reality, and they think they are entitled to do, say, and act however they like without any consequences. Just a little bit of insight to help you better understand the inner workings of some of these deranged, progressive activists, politicians, and talking heads. They also seem to be filled with hate, self-loathing would be my guess. Talking to you, joyless Reed. Anyways, cackling Kamala Harris will continue the systematic destruction of the United States of America through woke, idiotic DEI policies. Remember the chaos of the last 4 years, the Afghanistan withdrawal, where Americans were left behind in Kabul as military planes took off with people holding onto the wheel well. Extremely disturbing to watch. Biden and Harris gave the Taliban control of Afghanistan and left essentially all of our high-grade military equipment for them to pillage and plunder, creating weapons that could be used against the innocents and potentially against Americans. Remember East Palestine, Ohio, when a train derailed, spilling toxic chemicals into the water supply, and the geniuses on the ground decided the best way to get rid of those toxic chemicals was to burn them, which resulted in a giant mushroom cloud of that toxic chemical human breathes, which human beings and animals are not meant to inhale. The media doesn't talk about the fact that the people in that area were affected with nausea, headaches, their animals getting sick, dying. It took Biden a whole year to actually visit the damn place, probably because of the pollution concern. But who cares about a working class town like East Palestine? They voted heavily for Trump anyway. Guess that disqualifies them from receiving government assistance. Too bad East Palestine isn't populated with illegal aliens, because I'm sure the government would have stepped in then. In addition to that catastrophe, we experienced problem with air traffic control, planes almost running into one another on the tarmac. We watched as generals like Mark Milley clutched his pearls about the scourge of white rage and how much of a threat white supremacy is to our nation's safety, all the while assisting in the wokeification of our military. Most recently, we had the atrocious response to the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Secretary Mayorkas, who should be impeached, fired, and potentially put up on charges of perjury, actually came out and said that FEMA had no money for hurricane assistance. And where did that money go? to house illegal aliens in hotels across the country. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. A record 325,000 missing children under the Biden administration, many of whom are dead or have been trafficked by the cartels because the Biden administration refuses to provide Border Patrol with the resources that they need. And it's very hard to forget, obviously, every day, the skyrocketing costs of nearly everything we as consumers need. The sky-high gas prices, our weakened presence on the world stage, the Middle East and Eastern Europe in flames because nobody fears or respects us, particularly Russia and China. The Biden-Harris administration has left us with a wide-open border, which directly correlates with the spike in violent crime we are seeing across the country. That is what you're getting with Kamala Harris. When you look at the way the two candidates run their campaigns, the stark contrast is plain as day. Let's look at the Harris campaign. Second Lady Doug Emhoff was stumping for Kamala in Florida. Watching this limp-wristed putz try to control a crowd made me actually kind of feel bad for the guy. He's the dictionary definition of a low testosterone beta male. Dudes for Kamala. It's so sad and pathetic. What kind of self-respecting man would? Well, that's the answer. None of these people respect themselves. I think they secretly loathe themselves for one reason or another. The type of men who sit when they pee. If you sit when you pee, vote for the current VP. Speaking of VPs, J.D. Vance is killing the game in terms of stumping for Trump and making a clear connection between staggering illegal immigration and rising crime. In every interview I see him do, he is effective. He steamrolls even the most skilled reptilian journalists, and he makes Trump's points clear in a very straightforward way. He is terrific. Tim Walz, on the other hand, is a weirdo and a radical abortionist. He will not stop until every state in the union has abortion on demand at any stage, including after birth. You guys have the audacity to say J.D. Vance is weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are. So it isn't much else. Don't give them the power.
When you've got the dynamic duo of Doug Emhoff and Tim Walz prancing on stage, boring the crowd to death, and attempting with no success to try to convince people that they haven't had their balls removed. Whatever you say, guys. But to all the loyal acolytes of Mamala, forget not that Miss Harris has encouraged such things as social media censorship, weaponization of the federal government. She has acquiesced to mob rule. In fact, she put up dollar bills to bail out rioters and looters during the summer of 2020, who were mostly peaceful. What a joke. But they used cruel and unusual punishment with the J6ers, some held without bail and solitary confinement, with no idea of when they'll be able to get in front of a judge. The juxtaposition between the two is another glaring representation of the two-tiered justice system that currently exists in the United States of America. A set of rules for one side and essentially no rules for the other.
That doesn't seem fair.
Free reign. Kamala Harris is a continuation of the same. So, as Trump and J.D. Vance have said many times, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
And I'd like to begin by asking a very simple question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
I mean, it's not rocket science. Before COVID, this country was firing on all cylinders. Then an unprecedented and unforeseeable, unless you were Tony Fauci or a Wuhan lab technician, pandemic hit that rocked the world's economy. But prior to that, our economy was doing very well. Reestablished a flourishing middle class, reaffirming us as the most respected, feared nation on Earth. And with the help of Elon Musk, Trump is going to restore efficiency, really drain the swamp, and restore efficiency, clean out the rot of the federal government, and the failed woke policies just rip them out, root and stem, help Americans get healthy again with the help of RFK Jr. Trump favors marijuana legalization. This is probably the first time ever that the Republican and Democrat on the ticket favor the legalization of pot. Trump thinks it should be up to the states. Kamala, as most big government Democrats do, thinks that there should be sweeping federal legislation legalizing marijuana. Trump plans to vote for the initiative in his resident state of Florida, where the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, actually opposes the measure, saying, we don't want Florida to turn into California, which is a very straight-laced Republican thing to say. Marijuana has been proven to have some very positive effects, especially on people who suffer from anxiety, PTSD, cancer. It's a very healthy solution compared to, opiates. I think DeSantis is on the wrong side of this issue, which is a large part of why he fell so flat in the primaries. Trump has adapted. He wants the young vote, but also believes in the Constitution, so he wants to split the difference. DeSantis' opposition shows a lack of ability to see when you need to expand your horizons and perhaps consider flip-flopping on specific issues after becoming more educated on them. And there is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind about something if you have a decent reason for it. I was young. I didn't quite understand the issue as well as I thought I did. Whatever the case, doing that shows the ability to grow, and people respect that. Look at Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., two former Democrats who left the Democratic Party because the party's values no longer aligned with their own. Trump has the right people surrounding him. He just has to keep reminding people of how insanely terrible the last 4 years have been, according to literally every metric that determines a country's success. We are failing, and we can't take 4 more years of this. Our country will be screwed every which way but Sunday. So please make sure you guys vote, because it matters. President Trump spent last weekend working the drive-thru at McDonald's, interacting with customers and employees, taking pictures, signing autographs, serving fries. It was a wonderful experience for those workers, and it highlights how much Trump, one, loves McDonald's. He's been keeping them in business over the last several decades. Virtually all the guy eats. To each their own. I'm more of an animal-style In-N-Out guy, but more importantly, it highlights Trump's desire and ability to interact with regular human beings without needing a teleprompter or notes to be able to engage and answer them. Kamala Harris is uncomfortable around the peasants from the flyover states, and it's very apparent on the rare occasion she's seen in public, or even as vice president. All she knows how to do is regurgitate talking points that have been drilled into her thick skull. She's also great at combining a bunch of words together without actually saying anything. Today is yesterday's tomorrow, and tomorrow will be today's yesterday. Today because we are who we are, and who we are makes us special because it's about us and being an individual, having experiences, shared experiences that shape who they are as individuals, and we need to remember that. We are who we are. Never forget that.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
Fuck is you talking about, bruh?
Okay, Kamala. The lounge lizards in the mainstream media, of course, attacked Trump for staging his trip to Mickey D's. Now, I mean, of course, there was some security that needed to be put in place. Trump can't just walk into a McDonald's by himself. He's already had 2 near-miss assassination attempts, less than 2 months apart from one another. You imbecilic, dishonest claptraps. Such permeating dishonesty has ramped up in the weeks leading up to this election. Every day it is something new, some newfound atrocity Trump has allegedly said or committed. He actually had the audacity to show up at a McDonald's and serve food. How dare he interact with the disgusting middle class? The media's hatred of not only Trump, but the entire middle class is so readily apparent. Their veil has been lifted for all to see, and this is the same legacy media, the same airheads who sat there for multiple years telling you that Trump was colluding with Russia. Then they told you he needed to be impeached for a quote-unquote quid pro quo with Ukraine, a farce that Joe Biden was actually guilty of, just like Hillary and the DNC were behind the Russian dossier. If that doesn't tell you the level of dishonesty is so insane, here's another example. CNN, as a car was completely ablaze in the background of his shot, reporters said that protests were peaceful in major cities. I think we have that clip.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly, but fires have been started.
And how could we forget the J6 smoke they've been blowing up your asses for the last 3 years about how it is the greatest attack on our democracy, on par with 9/11. So remember, they will literally say anything, including comparing Trump to a man who killed over 6 million people. It is heinous. The media is complicit in the downfall of this country because they've spent the last 4 years playing cover for the Biden-Harris administration instead of asking questions and being journalists and speaking truth to power. Again, from the train derailment in East Palestine to the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, Hurricane Helene, a wide-open border, they have remained silent. With all of that being said, the Biden-Harris regime receives an absolute failure in every conceivable way. We're far worse off than we were 4 years ago. We need Trump back in office. I am very concerned about the security of the elections. Obviously, when it's all running through Dominion, coupled with the type of fraud we saw 4 years ago when stacks of ballots were mysteriously appearing all filled out and all votes going to Joe, that's not strange at all. But that is what concerns me. Let's hope the RNC has put enough stopgaps and preventions in place to prevent any unusual activity on election night. We'll see. Trump talks about the enemy within. That is what the Democratic Party has become. People call it incendiary language, but they are diametrically opposed, as we talked about earlier, the oppositional defiance disorder they all seem to have adopted to anything Trump wants to implement. Trump wants border security, they want open borders. Trump wants more funding law enforcement, they want to defund the police. Trump wants to put some limits on abortion, they want abortion on demand with no restrictions. So they are the enemy within because we are currently fighting them within our own borders. People who don't like this country and don't like freedom of speech. That's the bottom line. So, again, I begs the question, why don't you leave if you hate this country so much? But let's turn to the entertainment industry. During election season, as you can imagine, it's every celebrity and pseudo-celebrity's chance to give their 2 cents on politics and throw endorsements behind candidates. Because most celebrities live under the delusion that Americans care about what they think and who they're voting for. I'm just going to say it. If the only reason you're voting for Kamala Harris is because Taylor Swift endorsed her, you're a moron. And that goes for any celebrity. I love to see celebs endorse my guy, but that doesn't change my opinion, nor should it. But many of the Hollywood elite have come out and voiced their opinions. I bet you can guess who most of them are endorsing, but there are a few who will surprise you. With that, let's introduce the celebrity winners and losers of the 2024 presidential election cycle. Now, this could change between now and Election Day, but for now, here we go. Michael Moore took a sandwich out of his mouth long enough to tell Biden to go full authoritarian in his last 100 days in office, fulfilling Moore's dystopian political bucket list. His main demands: cancellation of student debt, abolishing the death penalty, and ceasing all military aid to Israel immediately. None of these things are within the lame duck president's power. Michael Moore forgot about this little historical document called the Constitution, which prevents Biden from being able to wield his executive power in unhealthy ways. Sorry about your bucket list. I will give Michael Moore credit, though, for being the only liberal who saw the 2016 election for what it was and believed Trump had a path to victory. So kudos for calling that when no one else saw it. Got to give him credit there. Moving on to a celebrity winner. Shazam star Zachary Levi participated in a panel with RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard where he expressed his love for God and country. And through his endorsement of RFK, he has decided to endorse Trump, which he acknowledged as potential career suicide. Levy was the star of the Shazam franchise from the DC Comics. On to another loser. Overrated filmmaker Spike Lee warns doomsday if Trump is elected president. Where have we heard that before? Spike Lee has used his films to overtly attack Trump and his supporters, with one of his films depicting a character wearing a MAGA hat. On the issues, Spike Lee is responsible for the Malcolm X film, which has just as much political messaging, but is actually a good film and considered the best biopic of one of history's most influential and controversial African-American icons. See, I can say nice things about people too. Another winner, big-time winner, John Kahn, who after the first assassination attempt on Trump, is inspired to write the song Fighter, which topped the iTunes chart. If he can take a bullet, I can write a song, is what Kahn said. I believe that's what the quote was. Seeing Trump raise his hand in defiance, yelling while bleeding from the ear, yelling fight while bleeding from the ear, inspired Kahn, along with many Americans across the country. Some of them dislike Trump, but they can't deny the guy's a badass, and he refuses to be intimidated. Another loser, Star Wars legend Luke Skywalker aligned himself with the Lincoln Project, a group of rhino and pseudo-Republicans who attempted to sabotage Trump's Madison Square Garden rally by urging people to get tickets and then not attend the rally. Mission failed. Even the Jedi Master cannot stop the America First movement. The fact that Mark Hamill would align himself with this group shows just how deep-seated his Trump derangement syndrome really is. And winner, actor and comedian Eddie Griffin says he's going to vote for the crook, acknowledging that Trump is a felon, over the puppet Kamala. Good choice, Eddie. This adds to the growing number of African-American celebs who have jumped on the Trump train. It seems the media's strategy of screaming and saturating your screens, claiming that Trump is a racist for the last nearly decade, just didn't seem to work.
You fat racist piece of...
And now, for an honorable mention, I'm not going to give Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson a W, but I will commend him for apparently calling Trump immediately after the first assassination attempt to express what Trump did was heroic. Trump told the Undertaker this on his podcast, 6 Feet Under. The Rock doesn't get a W because he's one of the few big-name WWE stars, John Cena another, who has not endorsed Trump. The Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin have all thrown their support behind Trump, but Rocky and Cena have their Hollywood careers to think about. They don't want to commit career suicide, which again seems incredibly unfair and discriminatory, but such is the world in which we live. I've experienced it firsthand, not in Hollywood, but with the mainstream media, and I will share my experience in a later episode because we have to wrap this up. In closing, Kamala Harris will not do anything differently than Joe Biden. Our country will continue to suffer. Our economy will continue to tank. Our presence on the world stage will continue to be diminished. Why do you think Putin endorsed Kamala? Aren't Putin and Trump supposed to be best pals? Whatever. We will continue to see millions of illegals stream into this country, and our freedoms will be even more restricted than they already are. This is the same administration that wanted to create a ministry of truth to prevent the spread of disinformation and misinformation. That alone should scare you. Trump represents freedom, lower taxes, a plan for fixing our country on every front. He's going to come in with people like Elon Musk and take this leviathan we call the federal government and turn it into something that's more streamlined and designed to benefit you, the American taxpayer. So that's my pitch. Go vote. You'll be hearing from me again soon. For now, don't forget to like and subscribe. This is and always will be the show that mocks feigned moral outrage, interprets doublespeak, and shatters the fake news filter, providing you with the facts, no disinformation, no misinformation. This is Chrisinformation. Also, guys, I am gearing up a podcast focusing on mental health, addiction, and general well-being with my co-host, Danielle Lawana. So lots of content coming very soon. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.